Good morning, gamers! It's your girl Lyra from Yonoya Studios, here to present our final release of Adrift. Let's get into it. Let's briefly go over the roles. You know us all by now. We have Daniel, our lead software engineer, Mitchell, our technical artist, me, myself, and I, Lyra, the game producer, Gabe, our audio engineer, and Nihar, last but never least, our game designer. Let's talk influences for our game Adrift. Some of our major influences come from Ori and the Blind Forest, A Boy and His Blob, and Limbo. Adrift shares many of these games' overlapping themes of exploration and a coming-of-age tale to a young protagonist. The game Adrift is most like is Ori and the Blind Forest. Both share a very similar main setting in a dark and spooky forest. Both of the main characters, Ori and Arlo, go through similar trials and tribulations during their path in the game. The characters are experiencing both some sort of loss. Arlo is missing his best friend Jory, and Ori has his friend Naru, who passes away from starvation due to the forest withering away. However, at the start of their journey, both characters find a new friend to accompany them on their adventures. Arlo gets his bird companion, Soar, gifted to him from his father, and Ori finds Sen. They both must rely on each other to successfully survive and fix whatever issue is happening throughout the game. Our game is inspired by A Boy and His Blob via the companion system of The Boy and His Blob compared to Arlo and Soar, where both the boy and Arlo heavily rely on their companions to interact and navigate through the world, where a game takes from Limbo more in its darker tones and higher difficulty. Let's go over the game itself. Our game Adrift has deep origins as originally being a doodle created by yours truly back in 2011. This doodle captivated my imagination and soon was worked into a short story loosely inspired by Adventure Time and Over the Garden Wall. Last semester, when we were tasked with creating a game to pitch and plan, the former Sequoia studio came up with a simple generic game that reminded me of the short story I had once created in the past. After sharing that story with our group members, we all grew attached to the idea to bringing it to life and developing our own original pitch around that idea. After sharing my original concept to Nihar, our lead game designer, I then let him work his magic and create what is now Adrift. At the beginning of the semester, we polled the entire team to see what exactly we wanted to create and how ambitious we would want to do so. After polling Yonoya Studios to see what we wanted to create, it was agreed upon by all that we wanted to create Adrift, the story of Arlo and Soar, and that we wanted to create it to the highest level we possibly could. Adrift is a story-driven 2D platformer. It features a player character, Arlo, and his avian ally, Soar, as they traverse the landscape of the Canopy, a twisted forest populated by grotesque phantoms of Arlo's mind. The player must fight an onslaught of monsters and reach the final level where they will confront Dr. Rutherford, Arlo's father, and there learn the secret behind the disappearance of his missing best friend, Jory. Mechanics! Adrift's mechanics are exploration, survival, and discovery. Arlo and Soar will explore the Canopy, a large maze of a forest riddled with mystery. Arlo must survive in the Canopy while he explores it for clues of his missing best friend. He will be constantly in danger by the many hazards scattered in the forest, by the many different monsters that call the Canopy home, and by a mysterious doctor who awaits him at the end. Discovery. In Arlo's explorations, if he survives long enough, he will discover journal pages left behind by his missing best friend, Jory. Each page he finds will further unlock the story and be tied to the in-game progression, allowing Arlo to go further and further. Dynamics! The main player dynamics will revolve in how the player will choose to utilize his bird companion, Soar, by either creating powerful gusts of wind known as updrafts to rise further into the sky, or to command his avian ally to attack the foes that seek to harm him. We have multiple enemy types that the player will have to learn how to defeat using the tools available to them. This comes in the form of attacking the enemies directly with Soar, updrafting to avoid them, or, my personal favorite, using Soar as a boomerang while falling from an updraft to maximize his damage. Aesthetics! With our game having such dark undertones, such as young people dealing with the loss of a loved one, we want our game to reflect that to the players. We are doing so by creating a forest that gets progressively darker. For lore reasons, the game takes place in a fever dream Arlo is having. He has recently been told the truth that his friend is gone by his father and is unwilling to accept that. Therefore, he subconsciously creates this world in his head where he is capable of finding his missing friend. A plot device that we use is Jory's journals pages being scattered across the canopy. Pages give the player much needed exposition while they're progressing through the canopy. Just like the imagery of Adrift, these sounds also aesthetically get darker with each progression of level, starting very mystical from the loading screen, to adventurous in the first level, to twisted and dark in the second and boss scenes. Planning! On screen is our plan that we originally created at the beginning of the semester. Going over our plan versus when we actually implemented things, we can see that our team managed to follow it very closely. With the loss of a couple members adding to the later workload of others, we still did our best to stay on course, crushing each milestone ahead of us. With consistent weekly meetings with each member attending, meeting notes being added to Trello so each member had reminders of what took place, a constantly updating project manager on Jira informing each member what tasks needed to be done for each milestone, and and an active Discord constantly being updated by each member on each Git push being made, giving us all the notification of completion. Our team's planning and organization was top notch. Though not all of our original features got added to the game, some of this was due to our direction to not overextend too hard. With a team of very ambitious members, reeling in feature creep was a way to maintain a product that put quality over quantity, while still having a large scope compared to the cores. The key feature we didn't add was our sanity meter. This was because it wasn't as fleshed out as the other mechanics such as soar and the updrafts, and would prove to make the game less fun due to how it restricted the player's movement and increased the enemy spawn rates. As our game's difficulty was high enough, we saw it best not to include this mechanic and put fun over difficulty. Instructions! As shown on the image of the bottom right, which is our in-game instructions, the player can move on the A and D keys, as well as jump on the space, using the left click to deploy an updraft and the right click to attack with his ally Soar. We laid out the keys in this way so that the movement was within the left hand of the player and the abilities were in the right hand of the player, allowing for better decision making. Throughout Adrift, there are 3 goals to progress throughout the game. On the first level, it is to find the exits, to explore the canopy and escape. On the second level, it is to do so, but also needing to collect all 4 journals scattered across the map before being capable of moving forward. Once on the final level, the player must defeat the boss, Dr. Rutherford, his father. They must ascend and collect the last journal to finish off the story and complete the game. Hello gamers, and welcome to the game demo video of Adrift. Let's get into this. Here we have our level 1 that you know and love. The only differences on level 1 since our beta release are core changes to the game and not directed towards level 1 itself. The first being our UI, now placed at the bottom of our screen here, as well as it no longer bounces around based off of the camera's positioning, making it look a lot cleaner. We got rid of the 3 heart system and replaced it with still a 3 hit system, but now demonstrated by this blue jay to symbolize elements and themes of our game. Another core change is that traps no longer one-shot kill you. Instead, they only deal 1 damage. Boop. Arlo now also has iframes, so he can actually stand on the traps for a second before his iframes come off and then would then die to the trap. So he can still fall to his death in certain situations and will just be dead. As you can see below me, our friend the Humblebug is currently in his idle state. Here, he is animated to move, wiggle back and forth like a little cute bug that he is, but he is also patrolling, looking left and right, searching for Arlo. For their AI, we kept it simple just because we wanted to keep these creatures simple as they would be in the wild. But his AI would still trigger upon viewing Arlo. Because I was close there, he went straight into his attack, and because I had gone out of his range, he stopped his attack. But then he'll turn around and come back for an attack, making the gameplay against our melee enemies much more dynamic. Though I am still not the best at 2D platformers, I am very capable of clearing level 1, and will try to show off the rest of the game to the best of my abilities. Let's move forward. Whoop, back to the spookies. As you can see, when we entered level 2, Arlo regains all of his hearts, as I had 2 before entering, and now I am back to 3. Also, we still have our UI element for displaying the collection of the level 2 journals. This has now been moved to the bottom right corner of the screen to match the changes to our UI. As you can see above me, the spike pits that used to remain above here have decreased in size, as well as the removal of the quick enemies and removal of a couple of the ranged enemies. This is for balancing reasons, as they were just a little too strong. Unlike our beta, our journal entries have now been updated to the actual lore of the game, written by Nihar himself. This amazing story, we hope, captivates players and really helps them tie them to the world of Adrift. I will not show you all the journal entries because that is spoilers and you need to play the game and see the story for yourself. But our fall maze is a lot more fair now that it does not one-shot kill you. Woo! Just before exiting level 2, the player will get access to a secret newspaper. As I previously warned, I am not the best at 2D platformers, and especially not how intense this boss battle is, so I'm going to record my audio over a recorded completion of the boss. This completion was done by Daniel, our lead programmer. Enjoy! As you can see, when the level starts, the boss starts by throwing his vial attacks, which will spawn a random enemy between the 3 different enemy types. Here you can see a gurney, which is one of his attacks. While the gurney is out, in the current version, his hearts will turn gold, making the boss invulnerable to damage, meaning you need to destroy the gurney before you can continue attacking the boss. The third of the boss's attacks that is not the vial or the gurney is his bite attack, which he does in front of him, keeping Arlo away from attacking at close. Right there, that is the bite attack. Above Arlo, you can see our ink plot traps. There are 2 of these on the level, one on each side of the boss, constantly dropping down and splashing, trying to cause Arlo harm. Daniel is doing an amazing run here and has not lost 1 health to the boss. From all these different things flying at him, you can see we have created quite a dynamic battle, and we are quite excited to share this with you and let you play this for yourself one day. Here I am, cheating my way through life. As you can see here, when the gurney was spawned, his hearts have become yellow and I can now no longer damage him. But once the gurney is destroyed, they go back to red and he can now start taking damage again. Once Arlo has defeated the boss, the background music will change to a more somber tune and the final journal will appear, concluding the story and ending the game. Thank you so much for watching our game demo video. Back to the slides. Team Retrospective. Now that we have some experience under our belts on how to produce a game as a team, it helps bring to light what the job truly entails. Though, via polling our team and agreeing to create an ambitious project to demonstrate our team's many skilled members, some members' willingness to work on the project fell below our original set ambition levels. This caused distress in some of our members, as the project scope was bigger than the level of commitment they had to offer for this course, while the rest of the members of our group had to kind of pick up the slack for them, causing distress in them as well. We did our best to manage this moving forward by adding Jira to our management tools so that each member knew exactly what they must do for each milestone. As a producer, I decided to divide the workload as evenly as possible while still factoring in each member's strengths. This meant that some of our more ambitious and skilled members ended up being assigned a greater workload than others. Some felt this to be unbalanced, so after communication, we moved forward in future milestones by going through each step of what needed to be done and letting people volunteer for which tasks they'd like to do, allowing the workload to be spread evenly based on people's commitment levels. With each member having their own unique life and situation outside of the program, we did our best to work around others who were struggling at certain points over the project's creation. Luckily, being a group of friends before Unoya Studios' formation, we had comparatively very open dialogue about these personal issues and a very understanding team. But at the end of the day, we are all human, excluding Nihar, and communication got exhausted between certain members. Though those members did their best to remain professional and continue working on the project as a team, putting the product first. Adrift going forward. If we were to move forward with Adrift, there would be many things we would want to do to it. Though, having the time constraint of the semester really allowed for a cohesive project to be created. The one mechanic we planned on implementing but didn't get around to due to time constraints as well as complications with its creation was the sanity meter. The sanity meter was designed for the second and third level, where Arlo was going under heavy levels of distress due to this corrupted nightmare happening to him. This was causing the poor boy's sanity to decrease over time. Based on this meter, the lower it was, the slower and less high Arlo would jump. Also originally intended to scale off the meter was enemies spawning from spawners. These spawners were designed to be objects of Arlo's house, mostly from his bedroom, such as his closet, his dresser, his bed, to signify the monsters under the bed or the monsters in the closet, very childhood fear-esque. Though we have the 5 journals that explain our story, we wish we could have divided this more evenly and throughout the story. Adrift would be benefited from the use of cutscenes or even just still images to get across story narrative beats. The addition of still images or cutscenes would allow for a smoother transition and cohesion between the elements of each level. After playtesting the game vigorously, we found that Arlo would benefit heavily from having an additional attack that was not tied to Sora in the updrafts. This attack could have been our original concept of a yo-yo, just a quick, short-range attack that he could do to protect himself while Sora or the updraft were on cooldown. Thank you so much for your time, and we hope you're excited for Adrift as we are. We have been Unoya Studio, and have a good morning, afternoon, and evening, gamers. Until next time!